to talk about creating a reverb effect using granular synthesis. Granular synthesis has long been available as a manipulating and a sound generating kind of technique. And it's being increasingly popular in use now. Explained briefly, granular synthesis generates sound based on the additive combination of many very, very short sonic grains into larger acoustical events. And this technique has vast expressive possibilities with its parameters tied to time and frequency domain. Some basic parameters are grain rate, how many grains per second, the envelope, how the grain is faded in and faded out, the duration, the pitch, and of course the waveform inside each grain, which is very interesting parameters. It's been common to use pre-sampled sound or complex waveform as a source for the granular synthesis, but due to faster computers, granular synthesis has now been available as an audio effect in real time. For instance, with live performances, like we saw yesterday with oeyvind and brand, or as a plugin in a DAW. And common use for this technique is the grain delay effect found in, for instance, Ableton Live. Now this effect is similar to the classic delay in the way that it sort of delays a signal and it feedbacks the result into the input feed. And you have parameters like delay time, feedback amount, and also wet-dry amount. Now the granular delay differs from the classical delay in the way that you're able to sort of chop up the delayed signal and treat it as a granular, with granular synthesis parameters. And it is also possible to scatter the grains, which creates a lush cloud of repeated signal. And if the parameters are tweaked right, this can obviously sound like a reverb, a granular reverb. We have also seen line 6 has this new sound box, the M series, M5, M9, and M13, where two interesting reverb effects can be found. And they are called particle reverb and octoverb. And they both generate a lush cloud from the audio input signal. Both these effects contains pitch shift as an integrated part of the algorithm. Knowing this and taking the name particle verb into account, we can assume that granular synthesis is an important part of the reverb algorithm. In particle verb, we can also hear this kind of scattering, grain scattering, which also indicate that it's a granular reverb effect. Also in the native instrument guitar rig, there's grain delay. I haven't checked this out, so I don't know very much about it, but grain delay obviously has something with grains to do. So the classical reverb algorithm. In the physical world reverb is generated from the reflections of the surface in a room. And in the early day of recorded audio, echo chambers were used to recreate this. And later also the tape delay illusion, made an illusion of the early reflection. And nowadays a combination of all types of pump filter has been used to create an artificial reverb. Also feedback delay network constitutes a well-known technique. Currently also convolution artificially recreate the response of a physical room. Now the granular reverb is sort of similar to the delay effect in the way that the grain sort of emulates the reflections from a room. But one could easily term the granular reverb as a special effect more than a realistic recreation of the room. So a granular reverb in csound can be created as a grain delay process with a delayed signal treated with granular processing, which will sort of scatter the grains, or get a scattering grain sound, which creates a cloudy textural tail to the input sound. And this is done with audio input, which is recorded into function table or sort of an audio buffer using, you can use generating 2 or write to just numbers, or generating 1, writing to an actual sound file. And this table can then be used as a source inside of the grain using any grain upload. This is shown in the particle delay.cst. It's out on the internet. It's referred to in the paper if you read it. And we're gonna have some. Here's some examples. Oh, that was really small. That's strange. Just. So as you can hear, this is just a basic piano recording that is treated with that is fed into the granular reverb. This can be done as a real-time audio effect on stage. If you put a microphone on the piano and you play, you can use it as an effect or a guitar or anything. So I've just bounced this down to audio just to be sure that it will work here. So and to emulate the octaverb, we can use the same example, but just use the set. Just pitch every grain up one octave, and it will sound something like this. So that's kind of interesting, and also you can combine one that has the grains in pitch, and you can have the one with pitch one octave above, and two instruments simultaneously. This is up to everybody to experiment with. Now another way to do the granular reverb algorithm that I haven't seen in any of the commercial programs at all, but really is possible to do with csound because of its flexibility, is to time stretch the input signal. Now there are some conceptual problems here. I will deal with them later, but just to explain how time stretch is done using granular synthesis. It's really easy. You have an input signal like you can see at the top channel, and this input signal can be chopped into grains or into pieces. Then you can stretch them out just like an accordion. Then you will get a lot of empty spaces in between each grain, and these spaces can be filled with grains from nearby. And as you see, the result is a sound that looks exactly like the first one, only lasting much longer. This can be done without drop in pitch, like regular stretching will be done. Now this is just an illustration. It will probably look different, and also you won't feel it. You won't have the same grain twice, and the same grain twice, and the same grain twice. You will have more dynamically distribution of the reading position of the granular synthesis. Now, how is this? One more thing. We urge to avoid artifacts to the extent possible when we deal with time stretching using granular synthesis. These artifacts are most common from smearing of transients and amplitude modulation sidebands due to high grain rates. With low grain rates, the pitch is perceived through the transposition of the sound source, and it's not distorted at all. And one way to create a smooth time stretch effect using granular synthesis is to use 30 to 40 grains per second with overlapping grains to get the sort of kind of effect you want. And then you can have a small deviation on the reading position, because that will make the you won't get the perceived pitch through the grain rate, but the perceived pitch will be in the transposition of each grain when you have the deviation. You can also get a widened stereo image, which we want in a reverb, by doubling the grain rates and mask every other grain to the left and the right stereo channel. Now, time stretching in real time, time stretch on real-time audio. There are some obvious conceptual problems with this, and to explain this I'm going to use an analogy, the well-known tape recorder. The tape recorder has a tape which represents the timeline. It also has a writing head which can represent the recording instrument in csound. It also has a reading head which can represent the reading position on the timeline, sort of reading grains from the recorded audio. Now the problem, for if you haven't figured it out, using real-time time stretch is that the recording head will run away from the reading head, you know. And that's a problem because obviously it won't take a long time before this is no longer a reverb effect, but just something that comes a bit later. It will lag behind and increasingly so over time. And also after you have started the effect, after a while it will be so long that it's not working that way very good. So an attempt to solve this problem is to let the reading head sort of skip parts to catch up with the writing head. Then you will get the desired effect. And if you want to use it, it might be an idea to get this on the grid. You know, you can get it to skip the first and the second and get the time stretch on the third and the fourth. But that's not really where we want to do. And the way we kind of solve this was to use several reading buffers, or several reading heads, where we write to different sort of tape fragment, write to different tables, and all these sound fragments are stretched in time, and we can hear them simultaneously, just like illustrated here. So we record a fragment of sound into the first table, which is then stretched, and then we record a piece of sound to the second channel, which is stretched, and you can hear this simultaneously. So this can also be seen as a sort of a granular process. So we have in effect several cross-fading layers. We have an inner loop of granular synthesis that is dealing with the time stretching, and we have an outer loop that is dealing with the sort of cross-fading between all the time stretch instances. I guess you're pretty exciting to hear how this sounds. So this can be implemented in csound using a recording instrument and a time stretch instrument if you want. And you can have a metronome and a counter that keeps track of which table and when to write to the different tables, and also use the Schedule code to trigger the csound instrument. In our example, we have used 8 buffers, reading 0.5 seconds to each buffer, and this fraction of sound is then time stretched by a factor of 8. So playback of the sound segment lasts about 4 seconds, exactly 4 seconds. We've also applied an envelope with a slow attack and slow release to get all the instances to overlap with each other smoothly. And the parameters value has been tweaked empirical so that the reverb will be long enough to get the desired effect, but also not too unpredictable when an incoming sound returns from the audio processing, because we're still dealing with real-time time stretching, and there will be a small periodical changing on the pre-delay of the reverb effects due to the moving reading head position. And if this is a problem, one can also always use more layers of overlapping time stretch, because that will make the effect smoother and the variation in pre-delay will be smaller. And the reverberation time can be adjusted by controlling the time stretch ratio, and the reverb time can be calculated with a formula like this. Not that hard, where t is the reverb time in second and the small t is the time stretch ratio. Implementation consideration. Our granular reverb implementation uses the particle opcode, which is this opcode was inspired by Curtis Rhodes' book Microsound, and is capable of generating all the varieties of granular synthesis described in this book. And it's extremely flexible and offers a large set of control parameters, which may be the problem to kind of get all the arms around. So, but this can be done with any other grain opcode. What's important is that you need to be able to set the reading position. But in my opinion, the particle opcode is a good choice for implementing granular reverbs, both for its flexibility and also you can use up to 4 sound sources on each opcode instance. And a suggestion for optimizing the reverb algorithm is to use all the 4 sound sources of the opcode. In this way, you can get away with only 2 instances simultaneously instead of 8 instances simultaneously. And also with the particle opcode, you have per grain control over some of the parameters, meaning that one can, for example, specify the pitch and the amplitude for each grain. This way we can spectrally compose a reverb cloud. A neat suggestion is, for instance, to let every other grain be 1 octave above the original grain. We're going to hear one example. If you're plugging me out now.
No, I'm not trying. No, I'm trying to get rid of this piece.
So this is the time stretch reverb effect with every other grain pitched 1 octave above and slightly lower amplitude values, and also the grain, how many grains per second are doubled. So this sounds something like this. You can imagine that this is really an easy idea, and imagine spectrally composing a reverb the way you want and that's possible with the per grain control, and also the particle opcode are able to use 8 output so you and also you have per grain control on which output or between which output do you want the grain to come. So you can also compose the reverb spatially with placing grains where you want them to come. So there's a lot of exciting thing to do with this effect. And yeah, as a real-time effect, you can. It's sort of like you have an instrument and you play, and you get an entire orchestra to just respond on the tonality and the dynamic of what you're playing. So it's a great effect. In conclusion, in this paper we have shown how to create reverb-like effect using granular synthesis. We have also explained the concept of time stretching reverb using nested granular technique, you know, the inner and the outer granular. And we have seen how some of the commercial grain reverb works, and we have shown how to create a grain reverb in csound. We have also shown that the flexibility of csound, with the flexibility of csound, it is possible to take the idea of a granular reverb even further, creating highly animated and modulated reverb algorithms. And finally, we have suggested some possible optimization of a provided example implementation. The paper and all the effect code is available on the internet, and it's referenced in the paper. Thank you. Are there any questions?
It's not clear to me how the reverb. Could you explain it a bit more? I might have dozed off when you explaining the reverb, because I can't understand how actually the reverb is done. Because if you could give more details on that.
Okay. What we do is that we time stretch.
Oh no, time stretch is fine. No, what I'm saying about the how does the actual reverb process is done using granular synthesis. I just know how the granular reverb works.
In this case, the time stretching is the reverb. That's
okay.
what you hear.
Yeah, but I mean the first
one. Oh yeah.
The first example, the very beginning. Like when you're talking maybe before.
I see the grain delay reverb.
Grain delay, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. What you do is that you have a delay, just like a classical delay.
Yeah.
And the delayed signal is chopped into pieces.
All right. And
scrambled random.
Okay.
And you can choose how much will be scrambled up to 1 second. You can with csound you can have obviously as much as you want, or count of milliseconds how much you want this to be scrambled, and the delayed signal is then fed back to the input.
Of the granular. You granulate the delay output, and then you put it in the output back into the delay line.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a computer with the granular synthesis in the loop.
Yeah.
With the granular process in the loop.
Yeah.
So you could potentially think then of a kind of feedback delay line, a feedback delay network, which is kind of a big version of this with several. Because for each of the output paths feeding back into, you could have a granular processor in it, and you can have this massive. Yeah.
Sort of using the conventional way, the delay network, just applying granular synthesis on the. Yeah, that's interesting.
And the other thing is, because you're doing that, so you basically what you have is a computer with the. You could another way you could do it with this would be to apply this in the the conventional delay design, where you have, say, like for instance the typical Schroeder reverb, which you have 4 computers feeding to, say, 4 all-pass filters, which you could do then. You could have on each of these 4 computers you can have a granulator in the feedback, and in the all-pass filters as well, granulators there. So we could have it would be a similar thing to the feedback delay network, and you could play with those parameters and then and see how you go. You know, kind of the possibilities are quite big. And also the final thing is that the reverb is quite bright. Maybe considering putting a low pass filter in the loop as well to kind of make it a little bit more natural.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, but the user are free to do this how they want, and for me the point wasn't to make a reverb-like effect, but a special effect.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, if you want to have a more reverb effect, that's possible to do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for great inputs. I have a lot of work to do now. Yes.
Do we have a printer out of your paper to see the code, how it is done, or where can we find the code?
Are the papers printed out, or?
No, not printed out, not online.
But don't. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
So if you go to the homepage, you can see the paper, and on the end of the paper there's a reference, and there's the download. Fault.nl/kimad/csound 2011 / So it's just check it out on the
So I really like the sound quality of your example. They're pretty impressive. Thank you, and I apologize for the hiss on the speaker, so it's not in this example. Yeah, I'm really sorry. It just appeared today, so it wasn't yesterday. I don't know where it's coming from. So this all works in real time, right?
Yeah.
So, fantastic. I'm looking forward to check it out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, but also this is a really, especially the time stretch effect is a heavy duty.
It's heavy. Okay.
Yeah. So I tried getting it into Ableton Live for Max for Live, and with low buffer size there's some lagging, but I think that's the sort of implementation of the csound code into the Max code into the Ableton Live code again, and that makes it, because when I'm running it in csound it's perfect. All right, thank you.
It just occurred to me that you can't use a poly object in Ableton Live in Max for Live, can you? But if you could try running the instances of the granulators inside the poly, and then have them run different threads.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that in Max for Live.
No, the multi-threading is live is sort of like a per channel. So I don't think it will work.
But you could distribute the instances on different channels and have another orchestra to sum all the different instances. It's not a way. You couldn't work around it.
There's a lot of potential for optimization in the code as well. Instead of using, for now, in this implementation, is using 8 particle instances. But since we could use for different sources, actually being the same sound but with different time pointers, it would be easy to optimize.
Thank you.
While Massimo prepares his talk, I just want to point to the sound installations, because we have a world premiere of Ian. These are the famous csound haikus we already know from the list, and now we have the world premiere of the readable and changeable